Colleghe e colleghi, prendiamo posto.
Please take your seats. In French, Strasbourg was attacked 1 year ago when the Parliament was meeting in a part session. It is with a good deal of emotion that we remember those who perished in this Islamic terrorist attack. Antonio Megalizzi, an Italian journalist who was in Strasbourg to cover the part session. Bartosz Niecki, of Polish origin from Strasbourg. Kamal Nagband, a garage mechanic of Afghan origin, living in Strasbourg. Pascal Verben, a pensioner, and Supong Suevesaman, a Thai tourist. Terrorism is no respecter of nationalities, your social origin or your religious faith. It affects our whole society. Faced with violence and horror, we need to remain united, protecting the freedoms, values and principles which underpin the European Union. I'd like to express our deep respect and solidarity for all of the other victims, their families, their friends, the city of Strasbourg and the French people. I would propose, ladies and gentlemen, that we observe 1 minute silence in tribute to them.
Merci.
Thank you.
Apriamo I nostri lavori. Ha chiesto la parola l'onorevole Dita Sharantsova. Prego.
Niftħu il-seduta, il-Signora Sharantsova.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will speak Czech. Vážený pane předsedo, kolegyně, kolegové, dovolte mi, abychom před dnešním zasedáním vzpomněli oběti včerejší tragické události v České republice. Ve fakultní nemocnici Ostrava zemřelo rukou střelce 6 občanů. Nevinných lidí, kteří se již nikdy nevrátí domů ke svým rodinám a blízkým. Tragédie, která se nikdy neměla stát.
Never have happened. I share the sorrow of the bereaved, and I would like to ask you to express our condolences.
Grazie, Vicepresidente Sharantsova.
Thank you,
Onorevole
Ms.
Elena
Sharantsova.
Lizzi, a lei la parola.
Lizzi.
Buongiorno Presidente, cari colleghi. La ringrazio per questo tempo concesso per voler commemorare la memoria e l'operato di un mio corregionale, un italiano che però è stato il padre del programma Erasmus, quindi è un fratello anche di questa assemblea. Domenico Lenarduzzi è mancato la scorsa settimana all'età di 86 anni e come voi potete immaginare lascia nella famiglia un vuoto incolmabile, perché naturalmente caratterialmente è stato un uomo forte, pieno di iniziative, di buona volontà, ma lascia anche alla comunità europea una grande memoria, una grande testimonianza di quello che può essere un progetto comune vero da condividere, anche se in altri momenti le posizioni politiche nostre ci vedono molto lontane. Vorrei chiedere a questa Assemblea di, se possibile, di commemorare la sua figura anche in un altro momento in modo approfondito. L'abbiamo fatto in Commissione EMPL, so che altri colleghi si sono espressi si sono uniti a questo momento di cordoglio. Vorrei esprimere alla famiglia, alle figlie, ai nipoti il nostro cordoglio, la nostra partecipazione al lutto personale umano, ma soprattutto vorrei condividere con voi la persona, la figura e l'operato del papà di Erasmus.
To share all the work and the legacy of the father of Erasmus. Thank you.
Dichiaro ripresa la sessione del Parlamento europeo interrotta giovedì 28 novembre.
Interrupted on Thursday the 28th of November is
della seduta del 28 novembre sono disponibili, vi sono osservazioni?
In the last session are available. Are there any comments on them?
Vi sono osservazioni, il processo verbale è approvato.
Those sections, the minutes of the last session will be
a seguito della nomina
adopted. Following on from the appointment of Dubravka Suica, Adina Ioana Valian and Nicola Schmidt to the European Commission. European Parliament has noted that their seats have become vacant from the 1st of December this year. The Croatian authorities have told me that Shukana Lavak is replacing Ms. Suica. This will take effect from, or has taken effect from the 1st of December this year. The Romanian authorities have told me that the European Parliament election has resulted in Mr. Nistor replacing Ms. Valia. This took effect on the 2nd of December this year, and the authorities in Luxembourg have told me that Mark Angel has been elected to the European Parliament replacing Mr. Schmidt. This took effect on the 10th of December this year. We would like to welcome all of these new colleagues to the Parliament. Of course, they sit in the Parliament with full rights in Parliament bodies under our rules of procedure. Let's move on to the actual agenda.
Il progetto definitivo fissato dalla conferenza dei presidenti il 28 novembre, norma dell'articolo 157
under Rule 157,
distribuito.
It's been given out.
Vediamo se ci sono richieste di
modifica.
Sì, mercoledì il
on
gruppo dei
Wednesday,
Verdi ha chiesto che la discussione sulla dichiarazione della Commissione sul Green Deal europeo si concluda con una risoluzione da votare
and with a resolution to be voted on in the January part session, the first part session. I'll give the floor to Mr. Lamberts, who's going to move this motion from the Greens. Go ahead, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous vivons aujourd'hui un moment important. C'est le premier acte politique de la nouvelle Commission européenne et c'est un acte
act by the new Commission, and it's one that will have a broad scope across all of the EU policies. And I'm pleased that the Commission has decided to present it here to us first in the European Parliament. I think that's how democracy should work. And I think that it would also be good for our Assembly to respond to this Commission text and to do that with a substantive text ourselves, with a resolution which would give the European Parliament's vision here on those general proposals made by the Commission. And of course we will have a chance to comment on each of the legislative initiatives from the Commission, that's obvious, but I think it would also be good for us to give us an overall view of this overall project and proposal. So we would like to have that resolution in January 1.
Grazie. Vi sono
Thank you.
Vi è un intervento contrario?
Anybody like to speak against the motion?
Sono contrari? Allora passiamo la richiesta posta ai voti per alzata di mano. Chi è d'accordo con l'onorevole Lamberts?
With Mr. Lambert's proposal?
Chi è contrario?
Those against?
Chi si astiene?
Abstentions?
Approvato.
That's carried.
Quindi la discussione sulla dichiarazione della Commissione sul Green Deal europeo si concluderà con una risoluzione che sarà votata a gennaio 1.
to be voted on in January 1. And that means that the agenda is now adopted, and we can move on to the Commission statement on the European Green Deal. I'd like to thank President von der Leyen for attending this afternoon, and I will now give her the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Il y a 2 semaines que j'ai fait une promesse.
2 weeks ago, I made a promise to this Parliament. I promised that my Commission will not waste time. So here we are, just 2 weeks later. We're here before you with our proposal for a European Green Deal. It is the people of Europe who have called on us to take decisive action against climate change. Europeans have made their voices heard in the streets and at the ballot box, and it's for them that we are here today. It is for them that we are presenting such an ambitious Green Deal for Europe. And it is today that we want to say to them that we have heard them. We have heard you loud and clear, and here is our response. Members of the European Parliament, in July, straight after my appointment, I put climate action at the heart of my political programme. Thanks to your vote, you have adopted that programme, and I promise that you will have a central role in the coming phases. Today, France and myself and the whole college are presenting to you and to the European citizens our ideas for the European Green Deal. We are also here because we need you. This proposal is not the end of the work we're doing, but just the start of a common path, and we'll only be able to proceed with your support.
This is not just our vision for a climate-neutral continent, it is a roadmap for action, with 50 practical steps on Europe's path towards 2050. It will take more than a generation to reach that goal. We know that this roadmap will have to evolve and adapt through the years. It will be a very long and partly bumpy road, without any question. But it is up to us to set the pace. It is up to us to leave no one behind. And we know that it is doable. We are determined to succeed for the sake of this planet and life on it. And so many European people, businesses and cities are already showing us the way. Last Friday, 44 of Europe's largest investors, representing €6 trillion of assets, called on the European Union to adopt as quickly as possible a climate law for climate neutrality in 2050. They want that law. They say it will give them the confidence to make long-term decisions for modern investment. It is about accountability and reliability. And therefore, a building block, a crucial building block of our European Green Deal will be in 2020 the proposal of the very first European climate law. It will set clear rules so that investors and innovators can plan their long-term investment. It will make the transition towards climate neutrality accountable and reliable. And next summer, we will present a plan to increase our ambition in cutting emissions. This decision on our 2030 target will not be left to chance. The plan will come with a thorough impact assessment to better understand where we can be bold, but also where we must be prudent. We want to be as ambitious as we can, and we want to be as realistic as we can. All of this will be ready in time for next year's COP26 in Glasgow. Europe will lead by example, but we also need more ambitious multilateral rules for the whole world. Of course, every continent has to find its own path, without any question. But the goal must be the same for everyone, and positive change must be rewarded and not hindered. We want to protect our planet. We welcome the change in production procedures. If companies invest in clean technologies, if they respect our environment, it can't be that they face unfair competition from heavy polluters. And that's when we will apply a carbon border adjustment mechanism with full compliance with WTO rules. Honourable members, the European Green Deal is not only about emissions. It is about boosting innovation. It is about quality food. It is about modern mobility. It will create new businesses and markets all across Europe. The European Green Deal is our new growth strategy. And this time it's a growth strategy that is not consuming, but it is a new growth strategy that is more giving back than it takes away. It's a growth strategy that is more caring. Companies from all across our continent are already turning the green transition into green opportunities and business opportunities. Some are converting plastic waste in modern furniture, for example. Farmers are using data from our satellites to adapt to climate change. Made in Europe batteries for electric cars are finally becoming reality. We must invest in Europe's potential for innovation. 70 years ago, Europeans invested in coal and steel, and it turned out to be a historic reconciliation and an economic miracle. Today, we are investing in renewables and algorithms, and the European Green Deal is about reconciling our economy with our planet, reconciling the way we produce, the way we consume with our planet, and respecting the environment we live in. That is the core of the European Green Deal. And honourable members, exactly 1 year ago, the city of Katowice hosted the Global Climate Conference of COP24. This city, that for over a century was a capital of coal, became the global capital of climate action. Delegations from the whole world saw former coal industries that now host congress centres, restaurants and concert halls. This transition did not happen overnight, and it was certainly not effortless. And likewise, the European Green Deal won't happen overnight, and it will be demanding. But it is the right thing to do. As in Katowice, the transition will bring better and healthier jobs. It will bring cleaner and less polluted cities. It will bring a higher quality of life for Europeans. But this transition will also need time, support, and solidarity. Therefore, immediately in the next year, we will propose the Just Transition Mechanism. It will combine public money and private money. The European Investment Bank will leverage it, with the ambition to reach 100 billion euros in investment over the next 7 years. It will be the springboard for those sectors and those regions that have to catch up. Everyone in Europe can be part of this change. The transition is not just about big industry and coal. It is an opportunity for our farmers with our Farm to Fork strategy. From Lapland to southern Italy, a whole generation of young farmers are rediscovering traditional crops and bringing new life to our countryside. The European Green Deal will be on their side. The European Green Deal will take care of Europe's incredible natural heritage. It will protect biodiversity and revive blue economy. But we, as institutions that serve the Europeans, we must also walk the talk. And this is what the European Commission will do. We also have to learn what this change means in our daily life, how to practice sustainability. What does it mean for our buildings, for our waste management, for our travels, for our paper use, you name it. Today in college, we set ourselves the target to be, as a Commission, climate neutral by 2030, and I invite Parliament and the Council to do the same. It's a challenge, but let's do that together. Let us support active citizenship and call on grassroots initiatives. Let us work with teachers and educators, because our children are not passive spectators. They are very active players in this endeavour. Our climate pact will be with them and for all those who are ready to play a part in this endeavour. Honourable members, a whole continent has to be mobilised, from mayors in small cities and in big cities, to all institutions on the European level. Every member of my Commission will be involved, every member state, every committee in this Parliament. In fact, none of this will be possible without your support. We will need ambitious legislation. We will need a 7-year budget that raises to the challenge. Today, we bring the European Green Deal here to the floor of the Parliament. Tomorrow, I'll present it to our leaders in the Council. And later this week, Frans Timmermans will present it to COP25 in Madrid. Let's start this endeavour together. Honourable members, some say the costs of this transformation is too high. Well, let us never forget what the cost of non-action would be. It is rising by the year. River flooding costs our citizens over 5 billion annually. Every year, our economy is losing almost 10 billion euros due to droughts, and farmers pay the highest price. And this is only the beginning. But this is not a given. We can resist these developments. It is high time, but it is not too late. With this roadmap for action, we make the cost of the transition fully sustainable. And many Europeans are already taking action. Only 1 year ago, no one would have imagined that millions would take to the street for climate. Our cities are choosing clean energy. Our scientists are developing the technologies of the future. Our families are renouncing plastic and choosing local food. Our European Green Deal is for them. It is ambitious. It is designed to be just. It is made in Europe, for Europe, to lead the way to climate neutrality in 2050. Europe has always given its best when it has worked together as a union. We give our best when we are bold and aim high. And with the European Green Deal, we are aiming high. Europeans are calling on us to drive the change. Now it's up to us to answer their call. Thank you so much.
Grazie Presidente. Adesso ascoltiamo i gruppi politici.
Thank you. Let's listen now to the political group representatives on behalf of the European People's Party. Ms. de Lange for 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Madam President, for presenting today the vision, the plans and the ideas of your European Commission when it comes to the Green Deal. And for the EPP, for us, popular parties and Christian Democrats, our motivation is crystal clear. We believe that we don't own this planet. We're nearly looking after it for the generations to come. And we therefore simply have a moral obligation to protect it. And for us, what we discussed today, therefore, is not just a deal. It's a solemn promise that we make to our children and our grandchildren. And the President of the European Commission earlier today talked about a man on the moon moment. And she is right, because aiming for something that is so hard to reach takes a lot of courage. But we simply need to act. We may be the last generation that can still act and have an impact and make a difference. We only simply have a couple of decades left. And at the same time, for the EPP, it is also clear that you don't put a man, or a woman for that matter, on the moon by just banning things, by increasing taxes and by telling people what they must do or what they can no longer do. We do it by bringing the best and the brightest together. That first of all. We need groundbreaking research, the smartest solutions and the cleanest industry, which will provide jobs for Europeans and opportunities. Let Europe be the continent that develops and produces alternative aircraft fuels, while also improving the rail market for shorter distances. Let Europe be the continent where we produce CO2 low or even free steel. We in the EPP, we might not be climate warriors, but we are, and we need to be climate nerds. That is what Europe needs to get ahead. We do it, secondly, by leaving nobody behind. It has been said, by not putting the burden, for example, on those who can least afford it. And this is a real worry among Europeans. We do it by working with our farmers and foresters. Farmland, forests, they cover more than 3/4 of our surface in Europe. And some brand farmers and foresters as the villains, as the problem in this debate, whereas they're part of the solution. And we should help them, starting by ensuring them a fair price for their products, as well as an international level playing field. And thirdly, we do it by being coherent and consistent. For the EPP, it is clear that an ambitious climate policy and a smart industrial policy need to go hand in hand. A Green Deal without a good deal for our industry will not deliver the change that we are looking for. We want and we need ambition with a business case. And finally, we need a global level playing field. It has been said, ensuring that other parts of the world either play along or cannot have uncorrected access to the European market. Today is a day, I think, for firmly putting that dot on the horizon. We agree on the direction that we are heading. We share an ambition, but the work on how we get there only starts. Let's not fool ourselves. It will be challenging, and what we need is a combination of real vision and practical strategy. And this is what the EPP can and will deliver. Thank you very much.
Grazie. Presidente García Pérez per il gruppo dei socialisti e democratici.
Gracias, presidente, presidenta. Hoy tenemos la oportunidad de iniciar una nueva era para Europa y para nuestro planeta. Solo 11 días después del inicio del mandato, la Comisión Europea, gracias al extraordinario trabajo de Frans Timmermans, nos presenta algo más que una propuesta. Lo que hoy se nos presenta es un nuevo modelo de crecimiento que tiene como objetivo transformar la Unión Europea
of transforming the European Union into a fairer, more prosperous society which is able to respond to the challenges of climate change. In November, this House declared a climate emergency for Social Democrats. This isn't just an empty slogan. It's a solemn warning which requires urgent, exceptional measures to be taken. The Green Deal shows the road that Europe and the rest of the world need to travel to change that world. It's a total paradigm shift, putting an end to the use of fossil fuels and reaching a climate-neutral Europe by 2050. If we want to achieve all of that through a fair transition, we need to base ourselves on 3 pillars. First of all, a green pillar. The 2030 agenda of the UN and the Sustainable Development Goals must be implemented through that. We welcome, therefore, the fact that the proposal has given form to our old desire to have Sustainable Development Goals mainstreamed into the European semester. Also, when I talk about the green pillar, I'm talking about the climate law with clear goals and the commitment to achieve climate neutrality. The second pillar is a red pillar, the social dimension of the Green Pact. In the Green Deal, we need a genuine social dimension, and we can only do this through a powerful social pillar which will allow us to transform our economies and make sure that no one is left behind. Disadvantaged classes can't be the ones who are worst affected by climate change. And the third pillar, the financial pillar, this will make or break the Green Deal. According to the Commission, we're going to require 260 billion euros extra annual investment. So we're going to need an MFF which has at least 1.3% of national GDP, and we need a fairer tax system as part of our carbon reduction goals. We can't fight climate change by ourselves in Europe. Our trade policy provides an excellent opportunity to export our labour and social and environmental standards abroad. Today we are sending out a clear message to meet the desires of the millions of people who are on the streets fighting climate change. These millions of people are prepared for the change. We Social Democrats are prepared as well. The question is, are our leaders and the other political forces prepared to meet the change? We have to be. It's time to do something. It's time to act. Thank you.
Per il gruppo Renew Europe, Presidente Ciolos,
la parola. You have the floor.
Mr. President, Madam President, Mr. Vice President, and dear colleagues, the Green Deal communication is the beginning of a process to put Europe on the right track to fight against climate change. But we will succeed only if we change this challenge into an opportunity for our citizens and for our economy. If we will go this way, Renew Europe will be a trustworthy but also a demanding partner. We led the declaration of a climate emergency and demanded the Green Deal to be placed at the top of the agenda. If we want the Green Deal to generate opportunities, we must avoid adding bureaucracy to bureaucracy. Green Deal must not end up with new red tape, but with a new societal dynamic. We need to go fast, but we also need to engage in a wide debate all across Europe and mobilise around this project. First, to trigger change, we need to set the level of ambition in our future climate law and to set impact assessment as a standard. Second, let's face it, the transition toward the carbon-neutral economy is and will be a challenge for many of our economic sectors and workers. It will call for massive investment, creativity and solidarity with the people and the sector confronted with the most challenging transformations. Third, a twofold approach to green digitalisation and technology is fundamental for us. Digital technologies are uniquely positioned to provide effective tools for climate change mitigation and adaptations. And fourth, we should not oppose traditional policies and new priorities, but modernise our traditional tools. Both cohesion and common agricultural policy can deliver on our new political ambitions. The Green Deal ambition must be integrated with policy reforms that are already on the table. Dear colleagues, the ascent ahead of us is the challenge of a generation, but with determination and teamwork, our journey can be an opportunity for our renewal and reinvention. The most challenging work is not only to set ambitions, but to find practical solutions to achieve them. And you can trust that Renew Europe is committed to being the active team member. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you.
Presidente Lambert, a
Mr.
nome dei
Lambert,
Verdi,
on behalf
prego.
of the Greens.
Chers collègues, nous nous réjouissons que la nouvelle Commission ait fait de la question écologique un des grands chantiers de la législature et que votre premier acte politique soit la présentation d'un Green Deal européen. Alors 2 semaines après votre entrée en fonction, il est normal que ce plan soit à ce stade schématique. La question qui se pose à présent est de savoir si et comment ce catalogue d'engagements et de bonnes intentions sera traduit en actions concrètes. Pour nous, 4 critères détermineront notre engagement sur le Green New Deal. Premièrement, il devra assurer que l'Union européenne prenne toute sa part du combat pour limiter le réchauffement climatique à 1 degré. Jusqu'à présent, non seulement les engagements de l'Union sont insuffisants, mais ils ne sont pas tenus. Corriger le tir exige que dans les 100 prochains jours, nous nous engagions à réduire nos émissions de 65% d'ici 2030. Et le dérèglement climatique n'est qu'un des symptômes du non-respect par l'humanité des limites biophysiques de la planète. Nous devons également agir sans tarder sur la biodiversité, sur le sujet de l'épuisement des ressources ou sur celui de la pollution de la nature, une nature dont nous dépendons pour notre vie tout simplement. Deuxièmement, pour réussir, la transition écologique doit être solidaire. Elle doit aller main dans la main avec une réduction drastique des inégalités économiques et sociales. Il va de soi que produire et consommer durable est financièrement plus cher. Faire porter l'essentiel du prix de la transition sur celles et ceux qui subissent pauvreté, précarité, déclassement est tout simplement intolérable. Les Gilets jaunes nous l'ont à très juste titre rappelé. De même, si cette transition est riche d'emplois, elle va aussi en détruire. Celles et ceux qui les occupent devront bénéficier de la solidarité de tous, et c'est à ça, et exclusivement à ça, que le Fonds pour la transition juste doit servir. Il ne peut pas être question qu'il serve à indemniser des actionnaires qui auraient décidé de faire le choix des énergies fossiles. En fait, ce fonds n'est qu'une petite partie de la réponse à la transition juste. Ce qu'il nous faut, c'est une transformation profonde de la fiscalité pour que ceux qui ont tiré les profits de l'âge fossile soient aussi ceux qui payent la plus grosse part du prix de la transition. Troisièmement, le Green Deal exige la cohérence de l'ensemble des politiques publiques. Par exemple, à quoi bon consacrer une part des budgets de l'Union européenne à la lutte contre le changement climatique si l'autre part aggrave le changement climatique? De même, le Green Deal suppose une refonte profonde d'une politique agricole commune qui reste aujourd'hui productiviste et orientée vers la satisfaction des marchés mondiaux. Et que dire alors de la stratégie libre-échangiste de l'Union, augmenter encore et toujours les flux commerciaux sur la planète est un total non-sens. Alors sur le plan de la cohérence, Madame la Présidente, votre projet évoque la question, identifie les contradictions, mais se garde un peu trop à mon goût de les trancher de manière claire. Enfin, 4e point, le Green Deal n'a aucune chance de succès si nous ne parvenons pas à remettre la finance au service de la société. Depuis la crise de 2007-2008, l'ADN prédateur de la finance, du secteur financier au cœur des maux que le Green New Deal entend combattre est resté largement inchangé. Pire, aujourd'hui, le climat général est plutôt à la dérégulation, ce qui est totalement irresponsable. Chers collègues, cela fait 60 ans que pour la première fois, les scientifiques ont commencé à établir le lien entre les activités humaines et les dérèglements climatiques. Un demi-siècle, depuis que le Club de Rome nous a alertés sur le péril mortel d'une croissance économique sans limite. 30 ans, depuis le sommet de Rio, où Jacques Chirac nous disait « Notre maison brûle et nous regardons ailleurs ». Plus de 20 ans depuis la première conférence des Nations Unies sur le climat. Et nos émissions de gaz à effet de serre continuent
greenhouse gas emissions still continue to increase.
Pendant que s'épuisent les ressources
and
et
whilst
que
that's
s'effondre la
happening, our
biodiversité,
resources are running out and biodiversity is being damaged. So it's time
car
to
généraliser à la
take
planète
action.
entière, Madame la
Because if,
Présidente, ce
Madam
fameux mode de
President,
vie
we were
européen
to
que vous voulez
use this
promouvoir exigerait
European way of life that you
4
want to
planètes.
promote,
Nous n'en
if
avons
that were to be
qu'une
rolled out
et nous
across the
dépendons
world,
d'elle
it would
pour
require
notre
4
survie. Je
planets,
vous
and we only
remercie.
have a single planet left. That's the one we depend on for our
Grazie.
survival.
Onorevole Sardone per il gruppo Identità e Democrazia.
For the Identity and Democracy Group. Go ahead.
Grazie Presidente, a parte il fatto che io sono nuova qua, ma davvero non avrei mai immaginato di ricevere i documenti una volta in aula e poi dover discutere di essi, perché insomma almeno uno, non dico tanto, ma almeno averli un'oretta prima, riuscire a leggere 2 fogli, invece no, evidentemente la democrazia in quest'Aula è così, è un po' scomodo dare all'opposizione la possibilità di leggere i documenti di cui si discute. Ho sentito parlare di 50 passi fino al 2050, un libro dei sogni, annunci da copertina. La neutralità ambientale entro il 2050, ma voi avete considerato gli impatti sociali ed economici di questa cosa? Io comprendo che la Commissione ha un po' la necessità di avere un'immagine un po' alla moda, perché non è che siete proprio amati, no? Però non mi sembra che sparare degli slogan sia il modo giusto o rincorrere la Greta del momento. Ha parlato di promuovere innovazione e cibo di qualità. Io mi domando se con cibo di qualità intende quello che abbiamo visto con i Nutri-Score, oppure l'olio tunisino, le arance africane. Lo dico perché all'Europa, ai paesi europei vengono richiesti degli standard, poi vediamo magicamente che fate accordi commerciali anche con paesi che questi standard non li hanno. La stessa cosa per quanto riguarda la plastica. Continuate a parlare di plastic free e poi fate accordi commerciali con paesi dove l'inquinamento è all'ordine del giorno. Ho sentito parlare di batterie made in Europe, ma voi avete in mente che oggi il 70% di tutte le batterie del mondo viene fatto in Cina, Giappone e Corea? Ho poi ascoltato l'evoluzione che c'è stata dal carbone all'acciaio e ora insomma l'ambizione dell'elettrico. Mi sono solo domandata, non è che qualche paese vuole per caso riconvertire il sistema produttivo a spese di tutti i cittadini europei? Perché magari questo è un dubbio che è venuto solo a noi, però insomma sembra abbastanza palese. Avete parlato di 100 miliardi di investimenti nei prossimi 7 anni e poi siete gli stessi a guardare le virgole dei vincoli e a chiedere rispetto dei vincoli di bilancio ai paesi quando devono sistemare il proprio dissesto idrogeologico. Lo dico perché ovviamente io arrivo dall'Italia, ma questo deve valere per tutti i paesi. Ultima cosa, ho come l'impressione di sentire per la seconda volta il piano Juncker, quello che aveva raccontato l'effetto moltiplicatore, che noi avremmo messo €1 e avremmo guadagnato 1500% in più. Non è stato così. Io mi auguro insomma che voi abbiate la capacità di avere una visione della realtà delle cose e andare oltre gli slogan di cui invece vi state riempiendo la bocca. Grazie.
Per il gruppo ECR, Presidente Legutko, prego, a lei la parola.
Legutko, you have the floor.
Mr. President, Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, 3 points. First, point number 1, we meet here in exceptional circumstances. We are discussing the sweeping changes to our climate and energy goals brought forward by the Euro Commission no sooner than 10 days since taking office and before our recent existing climate agreements have been implemented. This is ambitious, but it is not prudent. Point number 2. In the ECR, we had hoped the new Commission would be more cautious than the last one, that it would work with member states and within the treaties. If you read the treaties, Article 15, it's stated very clearly, it is the European Council who define the political direction of EU policies. And the European Council meets tomorrow to discuss, guess what? The EU's long-term climate policy. So I ask myself, why are we here today? Is the Commission trying to seize the initiative to take away power from the member states? When we look back, we can see that in 2014, the European Council unanimously agreed that 2030 targets delivered with compromise after painstaking negotiations. And today's headline goal of achieving climate neutrality by 2050 should have followed the same path, and member state governments should not be sidelined on something this fundamental. Point number 3, Madam President. In recent months, we have heard so much about the green wave sweeping Europe. But have you noticed that when this wave reaches the Baltic and travels down the Danube, it is not even a ripple. Why? Because in Central and Eastern Europe, we can see through it. We see a confused strategy that prompts more questions than it answers. Are the Commission's new climate goals credible and achievable? And what will this do to our industries? You pictured some sort of a paradise. Who wouldn't like to live in a paradise? But will this convince a million of Europeans? How have the new Commission, in 10 days since taking office, been able to fully understand how dramatically our economies could change as a result of this Green Deal? Have you an idea of social costs as well as personal tragedies it will generate? Point number 4, which I wanted to omit, but I will just indicate it briefly. It's about gas. We see a completely confused strategy here. Gas is going to be an essential part of decarbonizing in the coming years. A new legislation agreed recently prohibits future investment in gas. This is certainly confusion. So to conclude, Madam President, how we move forward has to be credible and achievable. Otherwise, you can have all the talk and targets in the world, but they will count for nothing if you can't actually meet them. And when you try to do it by force, the consequences might be disastrous.
Grazie. Presidente Aubry, per il gruppo della GUE, a lei la parola.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, Madame la Présidente. Le débat d'aujourd'hui n'est pas un débat comme les autres. Nous parlons d'un enjeu fondamental qui dépasse les clivages partisans, la survie de la civilisation humaine telle que nous la connaissons. Nous saluons la démarche de la Commission européenne de présenter devant nous son plan d'action, mais disons-le tout de suite, toute initiative climatique sera vaine si elle ne s'attaque pas à la racine du problème. Un système économique qui entraîne à la fois la destruction de notre écosystème et l'explosion des inégalités. Alors, certaines de vos propositions, comme sur la reforestation, les aides d'État ou l'efficacité énergétique, vont dans le bon sens, mais votre plan se limite à des objectifs qui restent imprécis, non contraignants et non financés. Ainsi, il ne trouve pas dans votre plan, on trouve beaucoup de plans d'action, de stratégies qui sont énoncés, mais peu de modifications législatives réelles, alors qu'on sait très bien qu'on ne sauvera pas la planète avec des incantations. Votre plan est aussi traversé par des contradictions qui sont fondamentales et qui rendent certains de ces objectifs inopérants. Sur l'énergie, comment être crédible sans un calendrier précis de sortie du charbon et du gaz et en étendant encore un marché carbone inefficace? Sur le commerce, à quoi servent des clauses environnementales si on poursuit les accords de libre-échange climaticides? Sur l'agriculture, comment augmenter les surfaces dédiées au bio sans réouvrir les négociations sur la PAC? Sur les transports, comment développer le fret ferroviaire en poursuivant le démantèlement des entreprises publiques? Sur les financements, enfin, où sont les engagements concrets pour une taxe kérosène, une taxe carbone et une taxe plastique? En l'état, ce plan ne permettra pas d'atteindre votre objectif de réduction de 50% des émissions de gaz à effet de serre, déjà en deçà des efforts à réaliser pour respecter l'accord de Paris. Pire encore, et c'est le plus important pour notre groupe, ce plan ignore la dimension humaine et sociale de la transition écologique, alors même, et vous l'avez reconnu vous-même, que les plus précaires sont les premières victimes de la catastrophe. Et ce n'est pas le dérisoire fonds de transition juste qui changera la donne. C'est une faute politique majeure. On ne résoudra pas la crise climatique contre les peuples ou en leur faisant payer le plus fort prix comme l'a tenté de le faire Emmanuel Macron en France. La transition écologique doit se faire par, pour et avec les peuples européens. Alors face à l'urgence, l'Europe a besoin d'un véritable Green New Deal social et écologique d'une ampleur inédite depuis l'après-guerre. C'est le sens du contre-projet de notre groupe de la gauche unitaire européenne
from the
nous vous remettons
European
aujourd'hui
United Left,
et que
which
nous
we
mettons
are
sur la
tabling
table.
today.
Des propositions concrètes
It
articulées
contains
autour
real
de
proposals
10 axes. D'abord, le Green New
based
Deal
on
doit
10
fixer une loi
axes.
climatique.
It needs to have a
Dans une loi
climate law,
climatique,
first
un
of
objectif
all. And the climate
prioritaire,
law will be
contraignant, la réduction des émissions de gaz
in terms
à effet de serre de
of
70% d'ici 2030.
GHGs by
Il doit lancer
60%
un
between
grand plan
2025
d'investissement
2030.
pour
There'll be an
planifier
ambitious
le
investment
passage aux
plan
100% d'énergie
as we
renouvelable
move to
en
100%
2050
renewables by
et
2050.
imposer des objectifs
And we'll
contraignants
have binding
d'économie
goals
d'énergie aux entreprises.
for
Il
energy
doit aussi
saving in
initier
companies.
un vaste plan de
There also has
rénovation
to be a
thermique
huge
énergétique
thermal
pour sortir
renovation
les
plan,
125
an
millions
energy
d'Européens
plan, so
de
the
la précarité
150
énergétique. Il doit révolutionner notre politique agricole en encourageant un modèle paysan. Il doit sortir de la logique du libre-échange et oser un protectionnisme solidaire. Il doit mettre la Banque centrale au service de la transition écologique. Il doit dégager des marges budgétaires en se libérant du carcan austéritaire et en luttant contre l'évasion fiscale. Voilà les grandes lignes du plan écologique et social que nous mettons aujourd'hui sur la table. Voilà ce qu'attendent les peuples et la planète, finalement un pacte pour les jours heureux, un pacte pour le futur. Il vous reste 3 mois avant la publication définitive de la stratégie de l'Union européenne. Le Parlement européen doit assumer son rôle et demander à la Commission européenne de revoir sa copie et d'augmenter le niveau d'ambition pour qu'on change enfin le système et pas la planète.
Grazie.
Thank you.
Onorevole Evi, non iscritti, prego.
Now, Madam Evi for the non-attached members.
Bene,
signora Presidente,
l'obiettivo di neutralità climatica entro il 2050, bene le tante misure proposte, tra cui l'economia circolare, la riforestazione, la qualità dell'aria, però rimangono ancora molti dubbi. In primis, dove troviamo le risorse finanziarie per la trasformazione, per la transizione climatica ed ecologica? Perché la Commissione europea ci stima, ci dice che avremo bisogno di 260 miliardi di euro all'anno da qui fino al 2030, eppure la Corte dei Conti And
poco
then
tempo
the
fa
Court of
ha detto che ce ne
Auditors just
servono
recently
circa
said that we need
1.115 di miliardi
a
all'anno
lot
da qui
more
al
money than that
2030
per year
per
by
fare quello che dobbiamo
2030.
fare.
And
Quindi temo, cara Presidente, che siamo ben lontani da un piano di questa portata. Siamo davanti ad una sfida epocale che lei stessa ha comparato al primo uomo sulla Luna, ma siamo sicuri che questo European Green Deal abbia le risorse necessarie? Perché sulle risorse proprie avete mostrato poco coraggio, la tassa sui rifiuti imballaggi di plastica non riciclata, le quote dell'ETS non basteranno. Inoltre ci potrà assicurare che non stiamo parlando di presunti effetti leva come quelli promessi nel piano del suo predecessore Juncker. E in più, quale ruolo per la Banca Centrale Europea per affrontare la sfida climatica? Infine, e chiudo, se si vuole fare sul serio lo scorporo degli investimenti verdi dal patto di stabilità e crescita è una riforma essenziale e non più rinviabile.
Grazie. Onorevole Pieper, prego.
Mr. Pieper.
Vielen Dank, Herr Präsident. Ich begrüße den Vorschlag für ambitioniertere Klimaziele. Wenn die Energiewende kostenverträglich gelingt, hat Europa gute Chancen, die globale Stärke der Industrie auszubauen. Wichtig ist erstens, dass die Kommission nun doch Folgenabschätzung für die Erhöhung des 40% CO2-Minderungsziels vorsieht. Voraussetzung für einen Umbau des Energiesektors hin zu den Erneuerbaren ist zweitens die uneingeschränkte Akzeptanz von Erdgas.
It's essential, but we've got to use natural gas as bridging technology. We need gas as well for producing the renewables and hydrogen-based energy. And thirdly, we will have to have huge imports of green energy. Wind and other renewable plants have to start right away. The energy transition has to also be an essential part of our foreign and neighbour policy. Fourthly, the energy transition has to be based on market technologies and technology neutral. That means that the emissions trading schemes have to be extended to buildings and transport. Innovation has to be built in. And we also need to have better cars, but that's not going to help with the climate technology. But I'm very much looking forward to a good debate.
Thank you. For 1.5 minutes, Madam Dalli.
Thanks a lot, President von der Leyen, Vice President Timmermans. The next years are the time window we have to plan out the new economic model that we want to adopt. And the European Green Deal can be the industrial revolution that put at its core social rights, workers' rights, sustainability and our industry's competitiveness. Any plan that is serious about delivering real results needs to be backed up by binding targets and measures, not only at the EU level, but at the Member States level too. Gone are the days where Member States want to postpone and defer taking action. To reach carbon neutrality by 2050, we need a 55% CO2 reduction target for 2030 and seriously consider an interim target for 2040. It gives clarity to Member States and industries where we want to go and how we want to do it. And no industry should be allowed to hide behind international mechanisms simply to postpone action. All sectors need to contribute, and that includes shipping and aviation too. Fossil fuel subsidies should be phased out and stopped. We need policies that direct investments to cleaner technologies across the board and in all sectors. We require innovative ways to generate new money for these investments. We need to discuss how best to mobilise public and private money so the right projects are rolled out, good quality jobs are created and our current and future workforce is prepared for this transition. We believe that the European Green Deal has the potential to brand this European Commission, and we are ready to work with both of you to deliver socially, economically and environmentally. Thank you.
Colleagues, there are requests for blue cards, but I'm advised that we don't have time. We're already running over, so apologies that we cannot take those blue cards. Our next speaker, and I would ask colleagues to stick to their time for 1 minute, Monsieur Canfin.
Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Vice-président, aujourd'hui, je suis fier d'être européen.
I'm proud to be a European today. I'm proud to be a European thanks to you, because you have submitted in 10 days the most ambitious plan of energy transition for a whole continent. When the US is withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, we are moving forward, and the Renew Group will be at your side, against those who don't want anything to change and others who want everything to change tomorrow, even though they know it's impossible. You need to stick to your course, because it's the only way you can bring along industry, the people and our communities if you want to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. We're particularly pleased to have a climate law by 2050, but also a figure already on the table for 2030. We want to cut our emissions in a legally binding way by at least 55% by 2030. Second reason I'm so pleased is that you're changing the rules of international trade. Henceforward, the European Union won't sign trade agreements without having, as an essential element, a clause on the respect for the Paris Agreement. So it's a new way of seeing globalisation, a new reason to be proud, and we'll be by your side when you want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute, Madame Toussaint.
Madame Von der Leyen, ce que vous proposez aurait été formidable il y a 25 ans. Mais nous ne sommes pas il y a 25 ans. Nous sommes en 2019 et nous sommes dos au mur face à la catastrophe. Ce dont nous avons besoin, c'est d'un New Deal vert qui vise une réduction d'au moins 65% de réduction des émissions de gaz à effet de serre en 2030 et non pas 50% comme vous le proposez. Respecter l'accord de Paris est un minimum. Ce dont nous avons besoin, c'est d'un Green Deal qui tourne le dos aux entreprises des fossiles, qui sortent du carbone et qui cesse tout financement, oui, tout financement pour celles et ceux qui détruisent notre planète. Les demi-mesures menacent notre avenir. Vous parlez d'investir, mais ce n'est pas de 1 000 milliards d'euros sur 10 ans dont nous avons besoin pour assurer la transition. C'est de 1 000 milliards d'euros par an. Vous n'allez pas assez loin, parce que vous imaginez encore que la croissance est une solution. Vous n'allez pas assez loin, parce que vous pensez encore qu'il faut ménager les multinationales, les banques et le système qui nous a menés droit dans le mur. Le Green Deal ne doit pas être une timide évolution, mais un véritable changement de paradigme. Il faut comprendre que l'économie n'est pas au-dessus des lois de la nature. Un vrai Green Deal demande d'adapter notre économie et notre cadre juridique à l'urgence environnementale. Il faut des mesures fortes, des mesures contraignantes, un véritable devoir de vigilance pour que les États et les entreprises respectent enfin leurs obligations climatiques. Nous avons besoin d'un nouveau contrat social et environnemental et nous n'avons pas le droit d'échouer.
I will in future have to cut people off because we are under time pressure. For 2 minutes, Mr. Borchia.
Grazie Presidente, ma quello che avrei voluto dire alla signora von der Leyen prima che abbandonasse l'aula,
before she left the room,
personale è che io in parte ho condiviso una piccola parte, sottolineo piccola, della sua presentazione. Tuttavia, come performamentis ritengo che per migliorarsi serva concentrarsi sulle criticità.
that for improvements we have to focus on the critical areas, but I'm actually wondering where we're going to get the money for what just seems a repeat of the Juncker plan. Now, I want to be a spokesperson, not for the major investors who can come up with trillions, but I want to speak on behalf of citizens and companies who are very concerned about the new Green Deal. These are the fears about the fact that this should be calculated on a long-term basis. It shouldn't just be short-term measures to keep public opinion happy or to impose much more stringent standards on European companies. For example, Chinese steel. What about the new Green Deal? Will that impose sanctions, or will it allow our industry to be completely submerged? Now, if competitiveness wasn't one of the most serious problems facing our businesses, faced with very aggressive international competition. Now, you talk about, or you fail to look at the consequences for jobs, and then there's the problem of relocations of our companies that go and pollute elsewhere. Now, I very much worry that money will be taken away from agriculture or cohesion policy, but I'm really wondering if that's going to help us if our companies then close down. Let me conclude, President, by saying that I hope that
I'm not
the
allowing you
lobbies...
because you are over your time. And before I go any further, why is it me that has to always deliver the bad news on timing? Because there is bad news on timing. We have 20 requests for Catch the Eye, and at the rate we are now proceeding, it will be very difficult to give any of those who want to catch the eye the floor. So those who get the floor, would you please respect your time? I will give you a warning after 5 seconds, and then I'll be ruthless. So for 1 minute, can I give the floor now to Mr. Vondra?
Začnu řečnicky. Proč si komise k programu svolává tento parlament a nezveřejní to na tiskovce, jak to bylo vždycky obvyklé? Kvůli uhlíkové stopě to určitě nebude.
Do it at a press conference. It's not because of the carbon footprint, because of the 2 hours we are here. We have actually extended our carbon footprint because we have gathered here from all over Europe. Yes, it is because it is a radical program. We call it a deal. But in fact, it's a green revolution. We are conservatives. We do not believe in revolutions. Yes, we do want to behave in a responsible way towards our planet. We want to protect the nature. We feel it is our duty. But the price must not be taking over procedures where one lot of people will be against the other, or immeasurable costs that will only lead to another revolution that will sweep away the most precious that we have, which is friendly cooperation of European peoples and freedom. The Green Deal must not become a new communist manifesto, this time in a green colour.
For 1 minute, Madam Modig.
Kiitos, arvoisa puheenjohtaja. Konservatiiviystävät voi olla kaikessa rauhassa. Tämä esitys ei ole lähelläkään vallankumousta, valitettavasti. Ilmastonmuutoksen torjunnan reseptihän on lopulta hyvin yksinkertainen. Päästöt on saatava alas, hiilidioksidit on saatava ylös ja rahaa viedä tukemaan sitä ekologista jälleenrakentamista. Ja kaikki tämä sosiaalisesti oikeudenmukaisesti. Sisältää paljon hyviä elementtejä, mutta onko se riittävää? Jotta vuoden 2050 hiilineutraaliustavoitteeseen päästään, on varmistettava, että vuoden 2030 tavoitteeseen päästään ja että se on riittävän kunnianhimoinen. Me olemme juuri julistaneet
targets, we need to reach them. They need to be set high enough. We have just declared a climate emergency, and you're saying that in 2030 the emissions have to be cut, so less than what the scientists say we need to be cutting them by. We don't really understand that. We need to do that by at least 65%. We need to have at least a 65% cut. And it's not enough, because in the programme there are not enough resources in order to cut these CO2 emissions, either in forestry or agriculture. They both need to be changed.
Thank you. For 1 minute, Mr. Correo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to say there are positive arguments coming from the presentation, but I still have many doubts about the feasibility of your ambitious programmes. We need a huge budget to realise the goals described, and we know that not all member states are relying on this. As you reported, we have to prevent the tremendous cost of non-actions. We know we don't have any other options, and we do need to invest now. We have a dual ambitions: the safeguard of our planet and the safeguard of our labour market. To ensure this, we need to invest in research. We need to simplify the legislation to give access to funds. We need more transparent dialogue with our citizens, and we need to pay special attention to the poorest regions of our continent. During the last plenary, we declared a climate and environment emergency. This was a desperate bid to raise awareness. We can't stand more words. We need concrete actions, and we need them now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marinescu, for 1.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Vice President, este foarte bine că avem această propunere pe masă.
It's very good that we have this proposal on the table right now. I hope that when you elaborated it, you've talked to all the DGs in the Commission, so that it would be based on some feasible proposals. You have a legislative program, and this is also very good. I would ask you to refine it in the following period and to see if your proposals are coordinated across various fields, so that we do not cause problems for one field by passing legislation in another. I hope that all these proposals will be based on impact studies, both as regards climate change, but also on jobs and competitiveness. I hope that all these proposals will be based on close consultation with industry and will be based on current technologies which are actually workable. I hope that you will take measures regarding the use of Horizon. If this is an emergency, as some people say, let's use Horizon to 100% capacity to innovate and not for fundamental research in this direction. And that way, maybe we will succeed. And I would also ask you to look at the global chapter.
I have got to be fair to everybody. 1 minute for Mr. Ertug.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Dear Mr. Vice President, first of all, let me express my gratitude to Mr. Timmermans for all the efforts what you have made in the last weeks. And I would like to take the opportunity, colleagues, to urge all of us, and I emphasize all of us, let's make this green European Green Deal to a Green New Deal. And let's look back. In the 1930s, ladies and gentlemen, the New Deal in the US and later other demand-sided economic policies in Europe created jobs, economic growth and unexampled social equality. This is what we need to repeat for the green industrial revolution. Our investments in new greener technologies such as battery production or green hydrogen need to be more ambitious, and we need massive investments in modern infrastructure for green energy and transport, be it in big cities or in small villages. And this is the way we should go all together, and thank you once again to Mr. Timmermans.
Thank you. For 1 minute, Mr. Davies.
Madam President and Commissioner Timmermans, I cannot emphasise enough how important it is that the Green Deal be tinged with blue. We have to safeguard our seas.
We poison the Baltic. We overfish the Mediterranean. We declare marine protected areas and then leave them in practice unprotected. In some fisheries, the catch that is thrown overboard still exceeds the catch that is landed because the laws we have passed are not enforced. But failure can be replaced by success. We can end overfishing once and for all, building on the achievements already being made. We can restore the rich biodiversity beneath our waves and help rebuild the stocks that will give a secure future to our fishing industry. And by putting sustainability first, we will be well placed to lead negotiations globally in promoting good governance of the world's oceans. So, Vice President, we face many environmental battles. This is one we can win. So please seize the opportunity. You have the chance to transform the state of the seas and make a real difference for the better.
Thank you. For 1.5 minutes, Mr. Buchheit.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. You're more alert than I am. I do apologise. It's for 1 minute, firstly, to Mr. Niinisto. Thank you for the correction.
Thank you, Madam President. The climate emergency is here. The science is clear and the youth are on our streets demanding urgent action. And this is the backdrop to today's discussion. And I applaud the Commission. I've seen, as a former MP and Minister of the Environment, a number of commissions, and this is the first Commission that sees climate action as a broad challenge that all the Commissioners have to address. But, however, broad is not still yet decisive. It has to be decisive. And this is where the Green Deal still is a programme of promises, but not on delivery. Is the Commission ready to increase the 2030 target to at least 55% to be even close to the Paris targets or even higher? Are you prepared to have a broad reform of ETS? Are you prepared to increase the energy efficiency targets and renewables targets? Because energy is at the core of the transformation that we are doing. 75% of our emissions come from energy, so we need to hasten the energy transformation. So we are willing to work with you from the Green side, but we demand decisive action and we demand it now. Good luck.
Thank you. And now for 1.5 minutes, Mr. Buchheit.
Dankeschön, Frau Vorsitzende.
Thank you, Madam
Meine sehr
Chair.
verehrten Kollegen, der European Green Deal ging mit 3
Ladies and
Versprechungen
gentlemen, the
ins
European
Rennen. Das
Green
erste war die
Deal started off with
Reduktion
3
von
promises.
Emissionen,
First of all,
das
to
zweite
reduce
die Schaffung von
emissions, then to
Arbeitsplätzen,
create
das
jobs,
dritte die
the
Verbesserung der
third one to
Lebensqualität.
improve the quality of life.
Emissionen reduzieren, das ist ein
Reducing
nobles
emissions is a
Ansinnen.
very
Doch allein die EU wird den
noble
Klimawandel
goal,
nicht
but
aufhalten. Gerade
the
einmal
EU alone won't be able to
10%
stop
der
climate
globalen
change.
Emissionen sind
10%
tatsächlich
of
in der
global
EU
emissions are produced
Allein die
in the
Inbetriebnahme von
EU.
300 neuen Kohlekraftwerken in
300
China mit alle
new
harten und
coal
teuren
plants starting
Einsparungen
to
der
work
EU
in
obsolet
China
werden lassen.
alone will make
Ob
all
die
our efforts
Maßnahmen des
obsolete in the
Green
EU.
Deal als
Whether the
letztlich
measures
dem
of the
Weltklima nutzen
Green
werden,
Deal
das steht in
are
den
helpful
Sternen.
to world
Sicher hingegen ist
climate
momentan vor
is
allem eines,
a
nämlich die weitere
question
Belastung
that we have
und
to ask
Gängelung
ourselves.
unserer Bürger
But
für Energie und für
what's going to
Fortbewegung.
be clear then is
Sicher ist
putting
auch der
too much
massive
responsibility on the
Kahlschlag in der
shoulders
deutschen
of
und
the
europäischen
citizen.
Automobilindustrie. Zum Beispiel
The
bei meinem
huge
Heimatort
hit
Audi
to
sollen bis
our car industry
2025
in
9.500 Stellen
Audi, for
entfallen.
example, thousands of jobs are going to
Die
be
EU steuert also
lost
ohnehin schon
in
auf eine
my
Rezession
region.
zu.
So the
Mit Ihrem
EU
Green
is
Deal
going
werfen
towards a
Sie,
recession.
Frau
With
nicht mehr
your
anwesende
Green Deal,
Kommissionspräsidentin,
the
einem bereits
President of the Commission is no
Strauchelnden
longer
einen Knüppel
here.
zwischen die Beine.
I believe
Wir
you
brauchen
are
eine Mentalitätswende.
giving
Wir
us
brauchen Freiheit
further
statt Subventionen.
hurdles.
Wir
We
brauchen
need
klare
freedom instead of
Rahmenbedingungen. Wir
subsidies. We
brauchen
need
Planbarkeit,
clear
Vorhersehbarkeit und
framework
Rechtssicherheit.
conditions. We
Das
need to get to a
bedeutet
plan.
auch,
We need
meine
legal
sehr verehrten Damen und
certainty.
Herren,
Ladies and
wirkliche
gentlemen, this also
Einhaltung der
means that
ursprünglich
we
einmal
have to
geforderten und
stick
versprochenen
to the
Technologieneutralität bei der
promised
Förderung künftiger
technology
Fortbewegungsmittel. Schwören
neutrality
Sie, Kommission, Ihren
in
Steuerungsfantasien
transport and
endlich ab
mobility.
und lassen Sie unseren
Commission,
Unternehmen wieder
stop your
Freiheit für
fantasies and
Entscheidungen.
leave our
Dankeschön.
companies free to decide for themselves.
Mr. Fiocchi, for 1 minute.
Dear Mrs. Vice President McGuinness and dear missing Commissioner von der Leyen, I hope this is not a sign of the times to come, so that the Commissioner thinks that she can avoid listening to a democratically elected parliament. Thank you, friends. I want to state that I'm 110% behind the new Green Deal, but I have 2 strong demands to the Commissioner, missing Commissioner von der Leyen. Number 1, force the US, India and China to follow our path, because otherwise our new Green Deal will be useless and counterproductive. And number two, while you devise the operative plan to reach the goal, put the business and the companies and the job as the highest priority, because we do not want all the industries to relocate in Africa, in Turkey and in the US. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. For 1 minute, Mr. Botanga.
Merci beaucoup. Vous parlez d'ambition, mais en même temps, avec ce plan, je suis sûr que vous allez décevoir Lisette. Vous allez décevoir Lisette. Lisette, elle a commencé à travailler à 15 ans et aujourd'hui, elle a une pension de 570 € par mois. Et qu'est-ce que vous proposez à la page 5 ? À la page 5, vous proposez d'augmenter la taxe carbone européenne. C'est inacceptable. C'est exactement cette taxe carbone contre laquelle se sont révoltés les Gilets jaunes en France, en Belgique et ailleurs. Et ça, franchement, on ne peut pas l'accepter. Aujourd'hui, nous avons 125 millions d'Européens qui vivent la pauvreté énergétique, qui ne savent pas se chauffer l'hiver, qui ne savent pas vivre dignement en allumant la lumière. Ça, c'est inacceptable de faire payer les gens pour ce Green Deal. Premier point. Deuxième point, ik denk dat u ook Apolline gaat teleurstellen. Apolline, een student die iedere maand op straat komt voor radicale maatregelen en die ziet dat u spreekt over openbare investeringen, maar niet breekt met de besparingslogica. Die ziet dat u spreekt over schone energie, maar toch niet breekt met het ETS-systeem, met de emissiehandel. Hoe legt u dat uit?
Stopping the ETS system. How do you explain all of this? Thank you.
For 1 minute, Mr. Nicolau Alavanos.
In a period of furious competition between imperialist centres like the EU, the USA, China, Russia and the energy giants, the Green Deal is clear evidence that climate change is being used as an excuse to give huge sums of money to big groups as they compete with each other. The European Union is rewarding the big capitalist interests who are polluting the environment with a green fund up to 10 trillion euros by 2030, while it punishes poor families with so-called green taxes using the dangerous doctrine of personal responsibility. The real concerns of ordinary people for environmental protection have got nothing to do with the export of polluted materials or export of waste to third countries. It's just recycling problems. The capitalists, with their chasing after the highest profit, are commodifying and destroying the environment. Only by a centrally planned economy without imperialist wars, without exploitation, can we guarantee the lives and health of ordinary people and protect the environment at the same time. Thank you.
For 1.5 minutes, Madam Montserrat.
Thank you, President. If Europe is heading the fight against climate change in the world, it's thanks to the EPP, with Juncker and Cañete, and achievements such as Paris. However, we cannot sit back. We've got to continue to push all regions of the world to be as ambitious as we are. We have to export our good management to have a planet that's clean and healthy. I think Europe is showing the world what to do in the fight against climate change, and the best thing to do is with the leadership of Ursula Von der Leyen and the Green Deal. But this major global challenge that we're all facing will not stop at negationism of the far right or scapegoating of the far left. We have to have responsibility and not leave anyone behind. The fight against climate change has to go hand in hand with economic growth, with more and better jobs, building on our manufacturing and our citizens, the people, the companies, the farmers, the fishermen, families, business people. These are all carrying the transition to a circular economy which is clean and responsible. For them, we have to give them all the tools, all the economic, social, legal tools, training as well, so that we make sure no one's left behind. And I want to give a message to young people, because they're the future of our world. Your best ally is the EPP. We are always here with you. We're working for Europe and for the planet, because the EPP have always been those pushing for major transitions.
For 1 minute, Madam Fritzon.
Tack, fru talman, vicepresident Timmermans. Jag har precis kommit tillbaka från Madrid där förhandlingarna om vår framtid pågår. Och jag vill att EU och Europa ska bli världens första klimatneutrala kontinent. Det kräver mod och det kräver politiskt ledarskap, lokalt och regionalt, men också nationellt i medlemsstaterna och här i EU-parlamentet. Vi socialdemokrater tar det ledarskapet. Europa måste ställa om, ekonomiskt, ekologiskt och socialt, men också rättvist och jämställt. I mitt land, i Sverige, har vi en regering som har antagit en klimatlag. Även i Finland och nu senast också i Danmark har man beslutat om en mycket ambitiös klimatlag. Dags att EU också gör det. Vi måste satsa på grön innovation, gröna jobb, för det ger en grön tillväxt. The Green Deal är här för att stanna. Den möter framtiden för våra barn och barnbarn. Tack.
And we need to guarantee the future for our children and grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute, Madam Chesh.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for this very promising communication from the Commission side. It looks like that after so many previous generations have ignored the calls for decisive action, we finally have a Commission that seems to care about our future. I can't wait to see these ambitious plans in the form of real legislation, because we have a very long way to go to deliver the Green New Deal, a historic accomplishment. And it won't be easy. The Commission is ready. This Parliament is for sure ready. Renew Europe is ready. But I'm looking over to the Council. Are you ready as well? Because in this moment, we still have 3 member states blocking the EU's climate neutrality target, including my own country, Hungary. We are still unsure if we will get an MFF that will cater to the ambitious goals you just sketched up, and this is very disappointing. I hope that we can ensure that real climate action does not fall hostage of power politics and backdoor compromises, and we can fulfill the promise of a safe and sustainable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Giegold, 1 minute.
Thank you. Heute bin ich wirklich gerne hier
Today, I'm very pleased to be a European here. That's a very good day then alongside the climate conference that we're having to be presented with this ambitious Commission deal. Now, it's good not to allow ourselves to be coyed. Strong climate protection is a precondition for jobs, growth and competitiveness. It's not the other way around. We've got to stop being held back by the past. But I do have my doubts about whether this agenda is sufficiently social. Now, it's true that we need greater energy tax and move to renewables, but in the light of the injustices in our society, the revenue from these taxes have to be paid back per capita to the citizens. Otherwise, people are not going to be supported. And I believe there is a lack of a social dimension. Otherwise, we're happy to support you constructively. We want to be more ambitious in trade policy, agricultural policy, the chemicals policy, but you're on the right path, and let us now start negotiating.
For 2 minutes, Monsieur Juvin.
Madame la Présidente, chers collègues,
Madam
bonjour.
President,
Nous vivons
colleagues,
un moment
good
en
afternoon.
effet important.
This is indeed an important time. It's the first
Tous nos
time
choix
that
économiques et
in our
politiques vont
House
devoir être
all
subordonnés à la
our
science des systèmes vivants
political
complexes qu'est
and
l'écologie.
economic desires need to
Ceci
be
me conduit à
subordinated
rappeler
to
que la
the
question du
demands
dérèglement
of
climatique
the
n'est pas la
planet.
seule ni
So
même
this
la plus
idea of
importante.
climate deregulation
L'empoisonnement des
isn't the
sols,
most
des eaux
important
et
thing.
des
The
airs,
poisoning of our water,
la
our
course au
earth and
moins-disant
our
entretenue
air,
par les traités de libre-échange
the 10
sont également
years
des problèmes majeurs.
problems of
Mais nous
the
voudrions
free
signaler que
trade agreements
l'extinction
are
de la diversité
huge,
des sociétés
but
humaines, notre trésor commun,
our
est probablement un
common
problème
treasure,
écologique
human
plus
society,
important encore que
and
l'extinction de la diversité des espèces animales et
extinction is
végétales.
possibly even worse than the
Ceci nous
extinction
conduit à
of
rappeler
animal
qu'un
and plant
État en pleine
species.
possession de son territoire est seul
state
capable de faire face aux urgences
which
écologiques.
owns its own
Ceci
territory
nous
is the
conduit
only
également à
body
rappeler
that
qu'une
can
nation
solve
garante de
climate
ses
problems.
frontières,
A
de
nation
l'identité et
that's
de l'unité
the
de son peuple
guarantor of its
est
borders and the
également seul
identity of its
capable de faire
people
face
is
à
the
l'urgence
only thing
écologique.
that's capable to
Et que
meet
par
a
ailleurs la
climate
famille, lieu de
urgency.
transmission de la
And the
responsabilité d'un
family,
territoire
as
que l'on
the
s'efforce de
area
transmettre plus
through
beau,
which
plus riche et
a
plus vivant aux générations à
territory's
venir,
desires and culture is handed down. That's the only thing that can solve climate problems. We need to look, therefore, at various problems. We need to make sure that we don't bring in regulations which bring disadvantage to the small-scale companies which generate most jobs in Europe to the advantage of the big multinationals. We need to make sure that behind the Green Deal there's not an attempt to make everything homogeneous and uniform in Europe, destroying our customs and traditions and the individual characteristics of our communities which make up our patchwork of a society. Finally, as a French person, I have to talk about the nuclear issue. Civil and nuclear energy are very intimately linked. It's an energy of the future as far as we're concerned, and it also guarantees France's strategic independence, and it could be the pillar of a Europe of defence. What we need to do is to make what's crucial, what's vital, desirable, and you can meet that challenge.
For 1 minute, Mr. Van der Veld.
Thank you, Vice President Timmermans, collega's. Verdere stappen voor een duurzame toekomst zijn hoogdringend, zoveel is wel duidelijk.
Looking to the future, we need to take some urgent action, but what we do need above all today are practical, feasible solutions that can be financed. They're going to have to come from innovation, and yes, you did present an integrated plan. That's a positive thing. Climate, the economy and entrepreneurship and innovation are all integrated in it. You also mentioned the circular economy as well. And however, I think that something that's missing is the funding basis, the financing, a clear financing basis. And there's risks you're running here if you don't address that. Firstly, we won't be able to achieve your targets, and then there's also the risk that you will lose a citizen's trust on the way. 10%, not even 10% of the CO2 emissions are coming from Europe, and that's something that we quite often forget. You want to be a very political commission, so please include that in your geopolitical mission.
Thank you. 1 minute, Mr. Giangoshi.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm glad to see that dealing with one of the greatest global challenges of climate change has become a top priority for the new Commission. This is a historic step indeed, and I'm very glad to take part in this debate on a proposal of the Green Deal. There is no question that Europe in this debate must take the lead globally and set ambitious targets, but these targets must be realistic, they must be measurable, and they also must be feasible, and not by 2050, but much earlier, possibly by the end of the tenure of the Commission. So I would like to see some intermediate targets whereby this Commission becomes accountable for the targets that it is setting. And of course, we also must state that we have wasted over a decade when the global financial markets were there was abundant finance and abundant liquidity in the markets. So we need to set those operative targets and those operative programs on which we can invest and we can take the lead in the future and also bring our partners on board to comply.
Mr. Linz, for 1 minute.
Frau Präsidentin, Herr Vizepräsident, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, wir können stolz sein. Heute haben wir einen ambitionierten Fahrplan für das klimaneutrale Europa bis 2050 vorliegen. Bei aller Ambition dürfen wir allerdings keine bereits vereinbarten Ziele abrupt ändern. Planungssicherheit ist das A und O für das fortgehende Engagement aller Sektoren und die Technologieführerschaft in der Welt. Bei der Reduzierung von Treibhausgasemissionen ist mir besonders wichtig, dass nicht nur Reduzierung, sondern auch Speicherungspotenziale optimal genutzt werden. Ich begrüße es daher sehr, dass neben einer Aufforstungsstrategie auch Anreize für ein nachhaltiges und aktives Forst- und Landmanagement in der neuen europäischen Forststrategie verankert werden sollen. Landwirtschaft ist weniger Teil des Problems als erheblicher Teil der Lösung. Positiv ist auch die Farm-to-Fork-Strategie bewertet. Wir müssen aber genau eine genaue Folgenabschätzung ansetzen, zum Beispiel bei Thema Pflanzenschutzmitteleinsatz keine falschen Entscheidungen
pesticides, for example, and not take the wrong decisions there. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Bonafé for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam President, Vice President Timmermans. On the Bureau of the Socialist Group, we've just come back from Madrid, where the International Climate Conference, COP25, is taking place. People are looking at us, they're looking at Europe, and they see the Green Deal, and it's not just the young people, those who are demonstrating they want a cleaner planet, they want a planet which has people taking care of it in a proactive way, but also they want to make certain that our industrial system is still competitive. We need to rely on the determination of Vice President Timmermans, who's worked on the circular economy and has worked against the plastic pollution. So we need to guarantee, first of all, resources. If we want an industry that pollutes less, new solar panels on our buildings, less polluting transport, we need an enormous amount of investment. We need a multi-annual financial plan up to the...
I'm sorry, but we have got to be strict on time. For 1 minute, Mr. Federley.
Thank you, Madam President. This Green Deal can be the start of for a whole new economy in Europe. Rightly handled, and if we're able to manage it working together, we can create new jobs, we'll create new industry, new technology that will create the start of for a new era, the green era, where we're moving away from the fossil-based economy to the green economy. That is why I'm a bit concerned that still lacking in the documents I've seen so far is the whole part on the bioeconomy, which provides us a huge opportunity to move away from chemicals and fossil-based materials towards the green-based materials. And that is a huge opportunity, creating jobs all across the European Union. And this might also help us to get a new boom in the European economy. Some say that we have to decrease our economy. This proposal will actually increase the economy with new jobs and new industries. And rightly handled, we will take the lead globally to show that a modern industrialized economy is possible to do in accordance with the biological and physical laws that nature has given us.
Thank you. Madam Phillips, for 1 minute.
By electing a record number of Green MEPs. Across the world, we are mobilising in our millions to protect our planet, led often by young people themselves. As a result, the European Commission is following our lead and now talking the green talk. It is down to us to make sure that their Green Deal walks the green walk, because their Green Deal is anything but new. But it's not too late. Commissioner Timmermans, you have the opportunity before you to tackle head-on the three crises facing Europe: the crisis of inequality, the democratic crisis, and the climate crisis. A genuine Green New Deal rises to these challenges. It engages with unions, bringing everyone with us on this exciting journey through citizen-led assemblies and, crucially, raises the standard of living and creates new jobs. We have just 10 years to curb the worst effects of the climate crisis. This Green Deal must not be yet another green wash. It must deliver a positive reality for all European citizens. Thank you.
For 1 minute, Mr. Rowland.
Thank you, Madam McGuinness. The EU's climate policies have failed. They have resulted in energy prices substantially higher than America, where energy costs are 80% lower than Europe. It's no wonder America is having an industrial renaissance at Europe's expense. The Renewable Directive has led to perverse incentives and environmental damage caused by expensive wind farms that kill migratory birds and bats and harm our precious marine resources. They have created a crony capitalist, subsidy-seeking climate industrial complex that has now vast lobbying base here in Brussels. Biomass is the most egregious renewable that illustrates the idiocy and hypocrisy. Drax, for example, generates electricity by burning wood chips imported from virgin forests in Louisiana and shipped to the UK. For this, they receive a subsidy of £850 million from the British taxpayer. It's a blatant transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. The Commission's new Green Deal will result in massive deindustrialisation. The destruction of nature, let alone the destruction of economies of Europe, is on your hands.
Mr. Tobey for 1 minute.
Tack, fru talman. Vi svenska moderater välkomnar Green Deal. Det är viktigt att Europa får höjda ambitioner när det gäller klimatet. Men det viktigaste är givetvis vad vi också gör. Och menar vi allvar med att vi ska klara av att fasa ut smutsig och fossil energi från Europa, då kommer vi behöva mycket mer av förnybar energi. Men vi kommer också behöva mer av koldioxidfri kärnkraft. Det kommer att vara en viktig del i många av våra medlemsländer. Och här tycker jag det är viktigt att kommissionen förstår att det här är också en helt central bricka i att kunna lyckas nå våra mycket höga klimatmål. Och det är också viktigt att ska Europa bli ett föredöme i världen så måste vi förena vår klimatpolitik med också tillväxt och välstånd. För det är så vi också kan bygga en politik som kommer få ett stöd hos Europas medborgare och kunna vara ett föredöme i världen.
We'll be able to support those policies for our citizens and be a model to be followed across the world.
1 minute, Mr. Fernandes.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you very much, President, and welcome to Vice President. I don't want to waste any time by congratulating you for the work you've done the last weeks and for your communication today. But there's one issue that has drawn my attention. And obviously the financing plan of this whole new agenda seems uncertain. I think the Commission has flagged up the needs, however we're facing huge challenges. What I want to refer to is the vague nature of having some kind of delimitation between goods imported and CO2 imported. Yes, we are suffering carbon leakage. Companies are leaving Europe to produce more cheaply, but to produce with greater pollution, therefore undermining the efforts that we're going to be making in the EU in the next years. Your communication, however, says that you see that this is a risk that might happen, and if it does, then you would adopt these measures. Now, this measure is necessary now. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Muller for 1 minute.
Herr Kommissar, Sie sprechen mit Ihren Vorschlägen zwei Punkte an, die mir besonders am Herzen liegen. Erstens freue ich mich, dass Sie eine neue und dringend notwendige Forststrategie ankündigen. Allerdings macht es mir Bauchschmerzen, dass dies nur auf Aufforstung und Wiederaufforstung reduziert ist. Diese Begriffe sind noch undefiniert und hier werden wir intensiv diskutieren müssen. Außerdem muss die neue Forststrategie die multifunktionale Rolle der Wälder
functional role of forests. It needs to be at the heart of it. And then you have farm to fork, secondly. I have been expecting a comprehensive, sustainable food strategy here, but all I'm hearing is that there will be additional requirements for these farmers. So, doesn't this strategy need to go beyond the farms? We don't have proposals on any of the actual practice, and we're just giving requirements for the farmers. We also need more steps in the chain. Sustainable food is not just about the production stage, it's also about processing, trade, imported goods and consumer information. The path right up to the fork is something that you need to add more steps to, Commissioner.
Thank you. Mr. Cuff, 1 minute.
President von der Leyen, Vice President Timmermans, today you are taking an important step in presenting the European Green Deal. We're pleased to say this. We're pleased to see it. We've been waiting some time for it to happen. Some people say climate action costs too much. They say it threatens our freedom. They say go slow. You must rise above this and show your resolve, because you cannot put a price on a planet that is healthy and safe for our children. In Ireland, the Vincent de Paul tell us 140,000 people, children, live in homes with leaks, damp and rot. We want a new deal for Europe that provides warm homes, tackles fuel poverty and makes jobs and breaks the cycle of poverty. In Europe, poor air quality kills 500,000 people every year. We want to phase out fossil fuels, promote renewables and improve people's health and save the planet. Your Transport Commissioner's first recorded meeting, however, was with the heads of 10 airlines. Why should they have priority boarding when train and bus companies are burdened with unfair taxes? We want to...
Thank you. Our next speaker for 1 minute is Madam Donato.
Grazie Presidente.
Thanks, Madam President. We've had this emergency plenary to be told about the Green Deal, but the Commission President leaves almost immediately. If this is the kind of respect the Commission has for the only democratically elected institution at the European level, I'm really very worried indeed. So let's hope that it's not just promises. Mr. Vice President, your Commission can't say that people are wrong if they want to eat healthy food, work in a healthy environment and see climate change battle. We need to be sceptical about your plan, however. We need to start the change within ourselves. We need to stop pursuing growth for growth's sake at all costs. We need to change the macroeconomic rules. We need to bring in green investment and an energy transition plan getting rid of carbon, yes, but gas must go as well. And we need to stop producing things like steel, which are highly polluting. We can't just simply have money thrown at this to make ourselves feel better. It's an emergency. It needs an emergency response.
Thank you. Mr. Buzek for 1
Przewodnicząca, Panie Przewodniczący Timmermans, wszystkie państwa Unii Europejskiej podpisały porozumienie paryskie. Stąd oczywiste jest poparcie dla unijnego programu Zielonego Ładu i głównego celu neutralności klimatycznej do 2050 roku. Chodzi zresztą nie tylko o klimat, ale także o czyste powietrze, bioróżnorodność, czysty ocean.
Climate objectives, but it isn't just about the climate, it's about cleaner air, cleaner seas and oceans. Our Green Deal should show that we're able to do this by developing our economy and creating new jobs. In order to achieve that, we have to have healthy balance. First of all, we've got to think about from now to 2030.
A może co najważniejsze, uwzględnić zasadnicze różnice pomiędzy regionami Unii w punkcie startu programu. Dlatego potrzebny jest nam w wieloletnim budżecie Unii odrębny program Fundusz Sprawiedliwej Transformacji, zwłaszcza dla regionów górniczych widocznych na naszym stronę. Dziękuję bardzo.
I'm referring. Our next speaker for 1 minute is Madam Rodriguez Ramos.
I think it's me.
It is you because you're more awake than I. So I'll do that again. For 1 minute, Mr. Nika, and then following would be Madam Rodriguez. Thank you.
That's very kind. Thank you. Mulțumesc, domnule vicepreședinte Timmermans.
Thank you very much, Vice President Timmermans. Congratulations for what you presented today, a very concrete package which gives us a lot of hope for the future of European citizens and Europe. You've said something very important here, that all citizens, all member states, all regions need to be supported because no one needs to be left behind. I would like you to look at the Just Transition Fund because as it was presented last week, as for Romania, the costs for the 2030 objectives are almost 40% of the GDP, and almost 80 billion euros will need to be spent up to 2030. So nearly 8 billion euros a year. This is a very large sum. We need to take care of mining regions where many families live. This will bring high costs, and we will need to have energy security. I count on your involvement and involvement of the European Commission in order to reach our 2030 goals.
Thank you. Now, Madam Rodriguez.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, Madam President.
La primera comparecencia de la
The
Comisión
first
para
appearance
presentar
of
el
the
Pacto
Commission
Verde
to
es todo
present
un
the
signo
Green
de
Deal
cuáles son sus
shows
prioridades y su
precisely
determinación
what their
política.
priorities
Mi
and
grupo
political
político se lo
commitments
agradece.
are, and
Nos
my
presentan
group thanks
medidas
you. We are
necesarias y
coming up with
ambiciosas.
necessary,
La primera ley
ambitious measures,
climática,
the first
reforzar
climate
nuestra
law,
ambición para conseguir la
beefing up
neutralidad
our ambition
climática
to
en el
achieve climate
2050,
neutrality by
protección en
2050,
frontera de la
protecting
competitividad de una
the
industria europea que
competitiveness of
innove y
European industry which will be innovative and non-polluting, and protecting biodiversity and farmers in a new approach to agriculture. This is a new challenge and a huge opportunity, and this Green Deal is a new growth strategy for our continent. It can put us at the head of knowledge, of innovation and technology, which will all be green, but will also create jobs and new opportunities for our companies. All of this during a transition period which needs to be fair, socially, needs to be responsible, needs to be balanced and inclusive. You can count on the support of my group. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam del Castillo for 1 minute.
Muchas gracias,
Thank you very much,
señor vicepresidente
President,
Timmermans.
Vice President
No hay
Timmermans.
duda. La
There's
lucha
no
contra el calentamiento
doubt
global
that the
no
fight
puede esperar,
against global
pero tampoco
warming
puede
cannot
acabar
wait.
defraudando.
But
Desde esa
at the same
perspectiva,
time, we
hay
cannot
que dar toda la importancia que
pull
tiene
the wool
una
over people's
estrategia
eyes.
industrial
It's therefore
europea
important to have
que
a
sea capaz de
European
desarrollar
industrial
tecnologías que
policy
incidan de
which
manera
can
decisiva
develop
en la reducción de las
technologies that can
emisiones
have a
a la
decisive
vez
impact in
que
cutting
gana
emissions
competitividad global.
whilst increasing
Esto
global
exige
competitiveness.
poner el acento
This
de la innovación
requires us
tecnológica
to
de tal
put
manera que sea igual, de una manera tan
technological
determinada
innovation
como el que
at the
se pone
centre.
en los objetivos de reducción de
And
emisiones. Y
that's
se
got to
traduce
be just
en
as important
decisiones muy
as
concretas
reducing
como hacer un
emissions.
esfuerzo
They've got to
grande en
be
incentivar y financiar la
concrete
innovación
decisions
tecnológica.
to
Y ahí está el programa marco de
finance
investigación e innovación. No cabe
technology
duda de que en Madrid se
innovation,
pueden
for example,
tomar
the framework
muchos acuerdos
research
por los
program.
gobiernos, pero
Now, obviously,
aquí hay que
Madrid
tomar
might
una
be
decisión
an
sobre
opportunity for governments,
presupuesto
but here
para
we
el
have to take a
próximo
decision
programa
on the
marco
budget for
de
the
investigación e
forthcoming
innovación. El Green Deal es un proyecto
research
realmente
program.
ambicioso. Todos
And the Green
compartimos
Deal
las
is
necesidades
highly
de hacer
ambitious, and
frente
we all
de una manera decidida al cambio
agree that
climático.
we have to take
Pero
decisive action
hay que
against
avanzar
climate change,
y no
but
defraudar.
we've got
Muchas
to
gracias.
move forward and be honest. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Marcus for 1 minute.
Obrigada, Presidente. Obrigada,
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you,
Timmermans.
Vice President Timmermans.
O European Green Deal
The
deve ter uma
European
enorme
Green
ambição.
Deal needs to be hugely
Tornar-se
ambitious.
pacto para a estratégia de crescimento
It needs to
sustentável,
provide
justo e
sustainable
inclusivo
growth which is
para a
fair
Europa
and
na próxima
inclusive
década.
for Europe in the
Mas
next
esta
decade.
ambição
But this
só pode ser
ambition can
credível
only
se
be
mobilizar
credible
os
if we
recursos
are to
financeiros
mobilise
adequados.
the requisite
As
financial
instituições
resources to achieve
financeiras
it.
como o BEI e o BCE são cruciais.
These things
Estamos num
are
momento
crucial.
chave
We're at
da
a
negociação do
period
próximo
where
quadro
things like the
financeiro
ECB can
plurianual.
play an enormous
A
role.
proposta que
We
está
are
em
looking
cima da mesa
at the
e
new
que será
MFF.
debatida
The
amanhã
proposal on
no
the table, which will
Conselho
be debated in the
Europeu, é
Council tomorrow, is
inaceitável. E
unacceptable.
mais, está
And further,
completamente
it
desalinhada
actually
com o
runs completely
discurso
counter
político dos
to
líderes.
the political comments made
Se de
by
facto
our
estamos
leaders.
empenhados
If we are
na
really
luta
committed
contra as
in
alterações
the battle
climáticas,
against
o
climate
orçamento da
change,
União
the
tem de
EU
crescer.
budget needs to
A
grow.
transição é de todos
The
e para
transition
todos.
is something which has
Todos
to
os
be
Estados
for
membros, sem
everyone and brought
exceção,
about by everyone. All
devem apoiar
member
esta
states without
transição
exception need to
e
support
todos devem
the
ser
transition
apoiados.
and
Muito
all
obrigada.
need to have support in turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Houtema, 1 minute.
Dank u wel, voorzitter, beste commissaris.
Madam Chair.
Ik ben er absoluut
Commissioner,
van overtuigd dat we
I
actie
firmly
moeten
believe
ondernemen
that we
tegen
must take
klimaatverandering.
action
De
against climate
weersomstandigheden worden
change.
extremer en
Weather
oogsten
conditions are
mislukken.
getting more
Maar dat kunnen we niet
extreme,
overlaten aan één
but we
bepaalde
cannot
sector
leave it up
of
to
één
one
bepaald
specific
land. We
sector or
moeten dit
one
Europees
country. We
aanpakken
need to
en
take a
zorgen dat de
European
rest van de
approach to
wereld
this, and we
meegaat.
need to make sure that the rest of the
Samen
world is
met
on board
mensen
as well,
en bedrijven
along with
moeten we dit
people
gaan doen.
and companies.
Maar
That's
dat kan
what we need
alleen
to do.
als we de
But we
zorgen
can only
en
do
de
that if
uitdagingen
we
als we deze
look
ook
at the
meenemen. Want
concerns
anders gaat
and
dit
challenges
niet
and take
lukken.
them seriously, because
Draagvlak is
otherwise it won't
cruciaal.
be successful.
Het
We
heeft
need
geen zin als
support.
mensen hun
It doesn't make
rekeningen
any
niet kunnen
sense if people
betalen
can't pay
of
their
als we
bills
onze
anymore,
economie
or
in
if
een
we push
recessie
our
duwen.
economy
Ik
into
roep dan ook
recession. So therefore,
om
I'm calling on
plaats te
you to
maken van
be
groen
able
idealisme naar
to
realisme en
be
gezond
realistic
boerenverstand.
whenever it comes
Want
to
we leven
looking at
niet
this
in een
green
papieren
idealism. We
werkelijkheid.
need
We
common
moeten
sense.
maatregelen
It shouldn't just be
nemen op
something on
basis
paper.
van
We need to
wetenschap
take
en
actual rules that are
effectiviteit.
based
Zoals
on
bijvoorbeeld
science.
emissiehandelssystemen. We
We
moeten
need to look
inzetten
at what the
op
effect will be. For
innovatie,
example, we
want
need
het
to look at
levert ook
ETS. We
banen
need to
op. We
focus
moeten
on
gebruik
innovation, which will
maken van de
create jobs.
Europese
We need to make
schaalvoordelen.
use of the economies
En
of
of we
scale
het
we
nou
have in
leuk
the EU.
vinden of niet,
And whether or
we
not we we think it's great. We don't have the luxury here of just working on our emotions here and excluding things such as nuclear power. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bushoi, for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Dear Vice President, climate change is the most pressing challenge we are facing. It has a wide impact across the world. It changes fast our society. I am confident that Green Deal will be a response to these challenges, and I am totally decided as President of ITRE in contributing to achieve the ambitious targets on climate policies with a coherent industrial policy, with a just, inclusive transition and maintaining the security of energy supply in the Union. Building on the success of Energy Union, we need to strengthen our efforts to improve energy efficiency, speed up deployment of clean energy and technologies, increase interconnectivity between regions and further integrate our energy single market. In securing our lead in tackling climate change, we need also to work towards climate innovation and digitization, increasing the number of jobs and also remaining competitive and assuring growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Van Bremt, for 1 minute.
Dank u wel, voorzitter. De wetenschappers hebben al lang hun werk gedaan en de urgentie aangetoond. De jongeren hebben het bovenaan de politieke agenda gezet en hier is nu
young people put this at the top of their agenda. Now we have the European Green Deal. And as far as we're concerned, it's not just an environmental program, it's not just to tackle climate change, it is the European project, not just for the next few years, but for the next few decades. And this means that in addition to the investment, it means that you need to look at the potential of using all of the European citizens. Think about the right to clean air in all of our cities and municipalities. Think about the hundreds of thousands of jobs which will be created. And then the jobs that are going to be lost will need to take people along so that they can be prepared for another job. And don't forget that we also need to think about the fact our energy bills will be cheaper because we're investing in new buildings. That's something that we need to spread right across the world. And so trade, therefore, is going to be a key thing that needs to be looked at in this Green Deal. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute, Mr. Halavecek.
Pane místopředsedo komise, váš koncept je v mnoha ohledech založen na fiskálních a finančních nástrojích a proto zcela nepochybně dopadne do životů a peněženek všech našich občanů a firem. Věřím, že vám záleží na tom, aby občané napříč EU vaše cíle dlouhodobě podporovali. To se může stát jedině tehdy, pokud jim budete říkat pravdu nejen o cílech, ale i o dopadech navrhovaných změn. Proto bych vás chtěl požádat, aby všechny obsažené návrhy a budoucí rozhodnutí byly opatřeny
I would like to hear from you that everything will be underpinned with a proper impact study and also a social impact study. Not every region is in the same position. We, for example, have many regions with steelworks, with coal mines, with car factories, and they may not win. Let's not forget that what is at stake is European cohesion. It looks good on paper. Now the question is, how will we manage to meet the targets? And I think we need to be open, for example, to nuclear energy as well, which has no emissions.
Colleagues, thanks for your patience with my strictness on time. And I have another bad announcement to make. We have to be finished by 4:10, and I therefore have been urged to cancel the Catch the Eye procedure. And I'm regretting that. It is not my call. I am just required to do that. For 1 minute now, I give the floor to Madam Tutt.
Köszönöm a szót. Tisztelt elnök asszony, tisztelt alelnök úr! Nagyra értékelem az európai zöld megállapodás kidolgozását, amely az első kontinens méretű terv Földünk jövőjének védelme érdekében. Itt az Európai Parlamentben mi is azon dolgozunk, hogy mihamarabb megoldást találjunk a klímaváltozással járó kihívásokra, ezért támogattuk a klímavészhelyzet kihirdetését. A 2050-es klímasemlegesség elérésére ki kell dolgozni egy olyan pénzügyi keretrendszert, ami a polgárok érdekeit tartja szem előtt, és a felmerülő többletkiadásokat nem a fogyasztókra hárítja. Nem megengedhető az, hogy az energia és az élelmiszerárak emelkedjenek, ezért úgy gondolom, hogy olyan megoldásra van szükség, amely a költséghatékonyságon alapul, és betartja a technológiai semlegesség elvét, valamint a legszegényebb uniós régiók támogatására külön figyelmet fordít. Ezért az európai zöld megállapodásnak nem csak ambiciózusnak kell lennie, hanem olyannak, amely figyelembe veszi a tagállamok igényeit, valamint megvédi a fogyasztókat és az unió versenyképességét. Köszönöm.
And maintain competitiveness.
Thank you. Mr. De Castro, 1 minute.
Presidente,
Madam President, Vice President Timmermans, France, this is a global emergency. We can see this because of the ever-increasing number of climate disasters, extreme events affecting our citizens. We need a coordinated approach, a joint approach to meet this crisis. And the ambitious deal put forward today shows that the Commission is taking up this gauntlet. But without winning over our farmers, any kind of mitigation for climate change won't be possible. So we need to make sure that incentives are provided as farmers provide those services, those environmental services, which will benefit all of us. Otherwise, France, the CAP reform, which we are working on, will leave up to member states the idea of coming up with a strategy to meet this challenge, a renationalisation of that as far as the rural environment is concerned. We need to make certain that the CAP is strong, because it could be the key to everything.
1 minute.
Thank you, President. Congratulations to Commissioner Ursula for coming here to us today after only 10 days in office with all the targets and recommendations she has for us today. I agree completely with everything that she said, and I will be cooperating with her in order to achieve those targets.
One aspect I was very pleased about was that President Ursula promised that no one will be left behind, and her announcement of a just transition mechanism, far greater in scale than expected, is to be very welcome, and will be welcomed especially in carbon intensive areas such as the peatlands in the Irish Midlands, coal areas in Poland, etc. And when you have everybody on board, then you can be successful. As we say in Irish, ní nart go cur le céile. Finally, I just want to make one point. My country was a laggard up until now, but with myself and yourself, Madam Vice President, and our colleagues, we will ensure that we'll be a leader in this area from now on.
Sean. Anish, for 1 minute, Madam Hungarius.
Thank you. Dank u, voorzitter. De overgang naar een duurzame samenleving
The transition to a sustainable society is only possible if we take everyone. But unfortunately, today it's become clear that some governments don't want to work along. They're blocking right now a law for clearer, cleaner investments. And that's very strange, because we need to be able to mobilise this money, and therefore we need to have a social and sustainable climate. We don't want to have an even greater divide between the rich and poor, and that's why, therefore, I'd like to ask you to really think about climate harmony. We need to invest in new jobs, jobs for people who are working in the polluting industries. We need to create jobs for people who will still be looking for jobs. And so that's why the Party of Labour wants to say that we want a deal so that we will actually be the first continent that will be climate neutral in 2050. France. As far as we're concerned, you're the right man in the right place at the right time to be able to make progress here in this fight. Thank you.
Madam Virkunen for 1 minute.
Arvoisa puhemies, tänään esitelty Green Deal viitoittaa meille tietä kohti hiilineutraaliutta vuotta 2050 kohti. Ja mielestäni on erittäin hyvä, että siinä on hyvin laajasti otettu huomioon yhteiskunnan eri sektorit. Se, miten meidän täytyy uudistaa teollisuutta, kiertotaloutta, ruokatuotantoa, biodiversiteettiä, kestävää liikennettä, kemikaalilainsäädäntöä, kauppapolitiikkaa.
More sustainable transport, chemicals industry, legislation, trade policy. Obviously, if we wish to be CO2 neutral, our industry has to be reformed, and society has to change as well. That means we have to strengthen innovation in Europe, so that our industry can benefit from that, and so that we can be more competitive in the future. Some things need special attention. For example, customs or the ETS system. We need few emissions.
1 minute, Madam Creel.
Frau Präsidentin, lieber Franz Timmermans. Ja, der Klimawandel ist eine der größten Herausforderungen, vor denen Europa steht. Der europäische Green Deal kann die richtige Antwort sein. Die europäische Kohäsionspolitik, die eines der größten, wichtigsten Investitionsinstrumente der EU ist, setzt schon jetzt einen Fokus auf Klimamaßnahmen. Sie soll das künftig noch stärker tun. Daran arbeiten wir zurzeit in den Verhandlungen zur zukünftigen Kohäsionspolitik. Wir brauchen hier aber auch eine stärkere Unterstützung durch die Mitgliedstaaten, die sich im Moment noch vornehm zurückhalten. Wir müssen dafür sorgen, dass der Green Deal solide finanziert wird. Das heißt auch, es geht nicht mit weniger Geld im Gegenteil, wir brauchen Neues, wir brauchen frisches Geld, damit die europäischen Fonds beim Kampf gegen den Klimawandel und beim Kampf für einen gerechten Übergang helfen können. Wir brauchen dabei alle Partner, nicht nur die Kommission, nicht nur das Europäische Parlament, sondern auch die Mitgliedstaaten. Danke.
Thank you. Mr. Amaro, for 1 minute.
Muito obrigado, Senhora Presidente.
Thanks very much, Madam President.
Esta renovada ambição que hoje foi apresentada
new proposal put forward today needs realism, as the President of the Commission said, and financing. The Green Deal needs to be a pact for growth. We're all aware that new challenges require new methods and new technological, financial resources. And the farm to fork plan is important, but we need farmers and farms if we want anything to put on our tables. We need therefore to stop people abandoning the countryside. More traditional products for the fork is a challenge to make certain that people stay in the countryside which they are abandoning at the moment. This is important. We need to guarantee food security and also combat climate change. They are a huge part of the solution, are the farmers of Europe. Thank you.
Onorevole Amaro.
Mr. Amaro.
Vicepresidente Timmermans,
Vice
a lei la
President
parola.
Timmermans, you have the floor.
Grazie, Presidente. Honourable members, I've listened very carefully to this debate, and I'm really excited by the fact that this Parliament has expressed such broad support for the European Green Deal. This is a great start of what is going to be quite a bumpy road, where we will need both institutions to concentrate on all the elements that we need to make the Green Deal work. First of all, let me say here today, I want to congratulate Greta Thunberg for having been nominated Person of the Year by Time magazine. I think this is a great sign, sign that this generation, our kids, are leading the way. And as a parent, there's nothing more beautiful than when you see that your kids are leading the way. But that's not the only reason why I believe we need to act now. The reason I believe we need to act now is because the facts are staring us in the face. And I think if you are a responsible member of Parliament, if you're in a responsible position in the Commission, if you're a citizen, if you're a parent, you do not have the luxury to ignore the facts. Look at what's happening in Greenland. Look at what's happening globally with our climate. Look at the desertification. Look at the erratic weather. Look at the people suffering because of this erratic weather across Europe. Look at what's happening to our biodiversity as we speak. We do not have the luxury to ignore this anymore. And look at another thing that's happening. We are in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution. That is going to change our economy, our industry, whether we like it or not, whether we act or not. So the question we have to face today as Europeans is this: are we going to try and be masters of this momentous change, of this paradigm shift? Or are we just going to let it happen and then others will be the masters of it and we can just be the subjects of what others will decide? This is the fundamental question we have to answer. And the Green Deal is not a blueprint. It's a roadmap. It's an extended open hand to you and to all the stakeholders, whether it's businesses, whether it's NGOs, whether it's trade unions, whether it's citizens, whether it's cities, whether it's regions, to be part of a discussion of how we are going to reorganise our society in a just way so that it reflects the values we want to stand for. And we need to do this because Mother Earth is fed up with this behaviour. And you know, she was able to exist for millennia without human beings. She will be able to exist for other millennia without human beings. We better make sure we create an existence in balance with her so that we can continue to exist as human beings for millennia. And this is the responsibility we have before our kids. But let me make a point, because it was said often, this is costly. Yes, but don't forget what the cost is of not acting. We see it every day. It was also said we have to be sure we take the right decisions. Yes, that is why every proposal the Commission is going to put on the table will be assessed for impact. Impact assessment will be an essential element of our analysis. But we will do this in a very, very speedy and comprehensive way. For instance, to determine exactly what the reduction by 2030 should be, from 50 to minus 55%. We want to have an impact assessment on that. But we want to be ready with that impact assessment early in the summer next year, so that the European Union is extremely well prepared with a climate law for COP26 in Glasgow, so that we can lead the way. I bring back a message from Madrid, the COP, where I'm going to go back and present the Green Deal tomorrow. The message is this: we need European leadership. The message is also this: some of us are insecure what we should do. But if Europe leads, we might go in the same direction. I had meetings with ministers from many countries saying climate neutrality by 2050 is a good idea. We might do the same way. With the Chinese, we're in a debate. Are we going to have collective global leadership on this? Yes or no? We need to work on that, because if we do it together, the impact will be much bigger. But at the end of the day, it is very important that this Parliament take this into hand and make sure that Parliament has a leading role, together with the Commission, to convince our Member States and Council to do the right thing. And if we begin by enshrining in law that 2050, Europe will be climate neutral, then we can take steps back until today and just chart the map that we need to get there. And then we will discuss the measures we will need to take, whether it's on ETS, whether it's on emissions, whether it's on taxation, whether it's on all sorts of other measures to make our industry circular, to make sure that there are jobs in this new economy. But finally, I want to add one thing which is very, very important. You know, the biggest risk here I see is that those who are most vulnerable in climate change see themselves also as most vulnerable in the answer to climate change, so that they start resisting the Green Deal because they feel that they are vulnerable. And at the end of the day, if they resist the Green Deal and they stop it, they will be the first victims of the consequences of not doing the right thing. So that's why, and this is a fundamental point, if this is not a social Green Deal, the Green Deal will not happen. If this is not a Green Deal where the most vulnerable regions in Europe, coal mining regions and others, do not see solidarity from other parts of Europe, it will not happen. So we need a level of solidarity with vulnerable individuals and vulnerable regions to make sure the Green Deal can be delivered for all our citizens. And let me end, because Mr. Lange quoted Man on the Moon, so I obviously thought of the famous moon speech by JFK. And let me just amend it slightly and end with that. We choose to go to the moon in this case. We choose to go for climate neutrality in 2050 and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organise and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win. Thank you.
Grazie. Grazie al Vicepresidente
Thank you to the Vice President
Grazie a
Timmermans.
tutti per
Thank you, everyone.
coloro che sono intervenuti.
Thank
La discussione
your
è
speeches.
chiusa. La
We
votazione
now
si
conclude the
svolgerà durante
debate.
la
The
tornata
vote
di
will take
gennaio
place
1.
in January
Il processo
1,
verbale
and
sarà
the
sottoposto
minutes
all'approvazione
will
del
be up for
Parlamento la prossima
approval at the
seduta.
next
Dichiaro interrotta la
session,
sessione
and
del
the
Parlamento
session is
europeo.
now
Grazie.
suspended. Thank you.